Hi everyone, thank you for the opportunity to present my work to you today. My name is Daniel Zarate and this is the third milestone of my PhD candidature. My project is titled Balancing Between Internet Use Risks and Opportunities, a Multimodal Perspective. And my supervisors are Associate Professor Vasilis Stavropoulos and Dr. Bruno Shivinsky. Firstly, I would like to pay my respects to the traditional owners of Australia. It always was and always will be Aboriginal land. And now I would like to start by providing a brief biographical information. In June 2020, I started this research journey, and the first and second milestones of this project were completed in April 2021 and December 2022, respectively. During that time, we published 18 academic articles and 8 of these were included in this PhD by publication. I also supervised 16 honors projects, assisted with 4 PhD projects, and worked as an academic sessional for Vic Uni and La Trobe Uni. I am currently working for RMIT, where I coordinate 2 third-year psychology units. I have also presented my work at conferences in Seoul, Nottingham, and 3 other domestic conferences. Finally, I received a research award from the Australian Psychological Society and obtained registration as a provisional psychologist. Now, moving on to the presentation outline. This presentation will be divided into several sections to provide a synopsis, a brief literature review, talk about the limitations of the literature, outline research questions and aims, explain how we address these aims, and outline the overall contributions. And finally, we will provide an estimated completion date. Let's start with a brief project overview. The technological advancement experienced in the last decades has seen a significant increase in internet use and engagement in online activities. This increased online activity has seen changes in the social fabric, redefining how we live and interact with others. This relentless transition to online environments brought associated risks, such as the possibility of becoming addicted to online activity. But it also brought increased opportunities, such as the ability to measure online behavior to detect mental health presentations. These risks and opportunities can be translated into specific aims addressed in empirical papers and collated into this PhD by publication. So having said that, let's look at a brief literature review. Let's start by looking at the literature on internet use risks. In the last 20 years, the internet has reached every corner of the globe, resulting in more than 5.3 billion users. There are positive aspects of using the internet. However, negative aspects have also been identified, such as developing addictions to online platforms. In fact, we recently saw a shift in how we think about addiction, proposing that addictive behaviors can relate to enjoyable activities and not only the use of substances. This idea has been proposed as behavioral addictions. Behavioral addictions can include a diverse range of behaviors such as excessive online gambling, problematic internet use, disordered online gaming, and problematic social media use, among others. Additionally, researchers propose that different patterns of problems may be observed in men and women. Nonetheless, considering the current debate in the field warning that an emphasis on addiction could lead researchers to over-pathologize everyday activities, many of these problematic behaviors have not been recognized by diagnostic manuals such as the DSM or the ICD. Interestingly, addictions usually co-occur rather than present in isolation, with comorbid problems increasing the likelihood of developing further problems in two important ways. Firstly, there may be a cycle of reciprocity exacerbating the risk of transitioning from one addictive behavior to another. For example, one abuses social media while progressively developing disordered gaming behaviors. Secondly, individuals may seek gratification through alternative addictive behaviors while aiming to disengage from a previously established addiction. Now, interestingly, evidence suggests that an online medium may increase the chances of experiencing comorbid problems with disordered online use. Now, so far, this paints a bit of a negative picture about online use. However, there are also some potential opportunities associated with online activity. And these opportunities can be framed around the idea of digital footprints. So the digital traces or digital footprints left as a result of interacting with the digital world generate large datasets or big data characterized by a large variety, large volume, and high frequency of data. Now, evidence suggests that digital footprints can be informative of one's health and mental health condition. And interpreting such digital footprints presents an opportunity, particularly within the area of mental health. Evidence indicates that due to stigma, individuals suffering from mental disorders may not express their discomfort, and consequently, mental health conditions can be underdiagnosed or be undetected. However, being able to identify instances of mental disorders through the observation and analysis of digital footprints can be cost-effective, time-efficient, and increase reliability of identification of mental health conditions. And the decoding of specific patterns of behavior observed via digital footprints is called the digital phenotype. In this context, a phenotype carries behavioral expressions of a person's genetic predisposition. By observing and quantifying individual behavior, we can infer occurrences of mental disorders. Quantification of individual behavior through digital means is then defined as digital phenotype. And this presents advantages compared to traditional observation of behavior due to the in situ or naturalistic observation and high granularity of data or moment-to-moment observation. For example, the time and frequency of social media usage may carry useful information to identify mental disorders. Now, this is particularly important for conditions such as anxiety or depression due to their high prevalence, high comorbidity across these disorders, and the aversion to reporting these symptoms due to stigma and social desirability. Now, having presented a brief overview of the available literature, let's focus now on the limitations of this literature. While available research addresses many aspects of risks associated with Internet use, many gaps can also be identified. Considering that this is a novel phenomenon, there is the issue of lacking formal recognition in diagnostic manuals, leading to inconsistent conceptualization. Subsequently, this leads researchers to find inconsistent prevalence rates. Also, studies usually assess relationships and psychometrics at the construct level, often ignoring analysis at the item level. But we can actually learn a lot from the behavior of specific items to understand how these addictions develop and propagate to other problematic behaviors. And finally, there is limited evidence obtained using longitudinal datasets to identify whether specific addictive behaviors can develop into other further problems. Similarly, there are limitations on the opportunities associated with Internet use. Specifically, given the digital phenotype and the use of technology to assess and detect mental health presentation is a field evolving rapidly, there are no clear conceptualizations leading to a fragmented field. So there is a need to summarize the existing literature and to use methodologies that focus on profiling and predicting mental health issues. Finally, because these concepts and methods are quite new, more studies are needed to validate the viability of the proposed theoretical framework. And all these considerations lead us to identify specific aims. Now, considering the aim associated with internet use risks, we wanted to clarify how disordered online activity is understood and measured. To do this, we broke down this overarching aim into specific aims to be addressed in different empirical papers. Firstly, we wanted to assess the possibility of cross-addictive symptoms of a range of problematic behaviors. Secondly, we wanted to understand if certain symptoms would increase the likelihood of developing more symptoms of disordered online use in the future. Thirdly, we wanted to understand if different online disorders are, in fact, different, or if these are simply different manifestations of one overarching problem. Fourthly, we want to assess the psychometric properties of various forms of disordered online activity at the symptom level to understand these problems better. And finally, we sought to propose cutoff scores to clearly identify individuals at risk of problematic use. Alternatively, considering the aims associated with internet use opportunities, we wanted to understand how digital data was being used to detect and predict mental health issues. Once more, we broke down this overarching aim into specific aims. Firstly, considering the conceptual inconsistencies observed, we wanted to provide a systematic organization of the available literature to enhance conceptual clarification. Secondly, we wanted to describe the different technologies used to assess and detect mental health presentations. Thirdly, we wanted to test if we could predict mental health presentations, such as anxiety, by quantifying online behavior. Finally, we sought to identify and describe different types of online users and their links to mental health presentations. Now, having outlined the proposed aims, we will now focus on how we actually address these aims. To assess the possibility of cross-addiction, understand if selected disorders are different, and address causality in cross-addiction, we conducted two empirical papers. Paper 1 provided evidence of cross-addiction with selected items related to drug use, online gambling, and alcohol abuse, increasing the likelihood of experiencing other addictions such as online gaming. Paper 1 also provided evidence of separate clusters of symptoms indicating that, in fact, these are different disorders. Paper 2, on the other hand, helped us identify specific causal links between symptoms of addiction. For example, loss of interest in activities and using online platforms to escape from real-life problems were strongly related to further symptoms of online addiction in the future. Now, to assess the psychometric properties of disordered online activity at the symptom level and identify suggested cutoff scores, we conducted 4 papers. Given the time constraints of this presentation, we will only show some snippets of each of these papers. In paper 3, we saw that interpersonal conflict due to disordered social media use was the most difficult item to endorse, showing advanced stages of addiction. In paper 4, we saw that different items assessing problematic online shopping behave differently, with the item assessing conflict showing a limited ability to assess individuals with low levels of this latent trait. In paper 5, we saw the Bergen-Yale sex addiction scale does a good job at identifying individuals with varying levels of problematic behaviors. And finally, in paper 6, we propose a suggested cutoff score to identify users at risk of disordered online pornography use. Now, looking at the aims associated with internet use opportunities, we conducted paper 7 to systematically organize the literature and describe the different technologies used to assess mental health presentations. This systematic literature review identified 118 papers and outlined that most papers assess mental health presentations via daily surveys using smartphone apps. And this signaled that more studies using social media content to predict mental health issues were in fact needed. So we conducted paper 8 to test if we could predict mental health issues and describe the types of social media users and their links to mental health presentations. To do this, we searched for Twitter users who posted the phrase "I have been diagnosed with anxiety" and analyzed their posts and online behavior to fit predictive and classification models. As seen here, the variables used to feed our predictive models included text length, sentiment analysis, day of the week, time of a day, and analysis of the words posted on Twitter. Using these model indicators, the random forest algorithm was able to identify Twitter users who posted having been diagnosed with anxiety with 85% accuracy. And finally, our profiling model identified that most self-disclosed anxious Twitter users frequently use negative words. And this takes us to the overall contributions. Considering the internet use risks outlined here, we demonstrated that online disorders are uniquely different and should be addressed as such. We also identify the importance of addressing the use of online platforms to escape from real-life problems. We show that individuals unable to cut down their social media use and becoming restless when not using social media reflect a high risk of experiencing disordered social media use. Additionally, the increased urge to engage in online sex activities show a high risk of experiencing compulsive sexualized behaviors. And finally, the increased tolerance to engage in online shopping also carries a high risk of experiencing problematic shopping behaviors. Considering the internet use opportunities outlined here, we show the viability and effectiveness of using digital technology to assess mental health issues. We observed high innovation in the technology and methods used to assess mental health. We also show the accuracy of using a text analysis approach to analyze social media content to predict mental health issues such as anxiety. Finally, we show that self-disclosed anxious social media users post negative words much more frequently. And with that, we conclude with the project timeline. Now, I'm glad to say that most relevant milestones have already been completed. For example, most papers included in this work have already been published. In fact, 7 out of 8 have been published. And I have also completed a draft of my thesis, introduction, method, and results chapters. And I intend to complete the discussion chapter and the research integrity modules next month. And with that, we have reached the end of this presentation. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your time. And I am more than happy to answer any questions you may have.